Hello, everyone, and welcome to Planning at the Speed of Change. This is a webinar brought to you by Cinareo and our friends at Engine. I'm Mark Alpern, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. We have a really exciting uh, uh, discussion for you today, wherein we're going to be talking about Engine's experience using the Scenario platform. And I'm joined today by Ryan Rosso and Martin Patterson, who let's have them say hello.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Ryan. I lead workforce management at Engine. I've been here about 2.5 years and come with about 13 years of experience in workforce management, most of which has been in the global travel space.
And I'm Martin Patterson. I'm the senior analyst forecasting and planning here at Engine. Been here for about 2 years and about 13, 14 years of workforce management experience overall.
Lots of depth of experience. I've been in the biz for close to 30 years. You can tell from the gray hair and the gray beard. But it's great to have you guys here. I'm absolutely delighted that you're going to be sharing your story with us. So let's jump right into what that story is. Or actually, let me do a few reminders before we do just that. I'm getting so excited, I'm getting ahead of myself. So this webinar is being recorded. Those of you that are attending will get a copy, and those who signed up but weren't able to make it, the recording will be available as well. Happy to address your questions during our Q&A. We certainly encourage there being active interaction within the Zoom platform. Please post your questions in the chat session. You can see a message that Shiva just posted down below. And as the session closes, please provide us with your feedback. We love doing these types of webinars. We love continuous improvement. That's what we are, and that's what we do at Scenario. So please, by all means, give us your feedback on the session and the value, the takeaways from the platform or from the webinar. So let me start off with this. A lot of us nowadays are, so involved in strategic planning. We've elevated the whole process of planning from not just a day-to-day tactical approach to one of strategic importance, right? And planning is not effective if it cannot keep up with how the business operates. And that's where platforms like Scenario are able to elevate the whole idea of capacity planning, and in fact, expand the whole capability to not just capacity planning of agents, but also thinking about in more broad terms about workforce insights and decision support. And so we're really going to talk over the next half hour about how Engine changed how they planned so that it can support and expedite business decisions. So over to you, Ryan.
All right, thanks, Mark, and thanks again for having us.
Our
Just to
pleasure.
to give a little intro into Engine and what we do. Engine's a modern travel platform built for small and medium businesses. We're on a mission to save businesses time and money, but also beyond that, make travel enjoyable for everyone involved. You can see here we have a range of products and services going from simplified expense and spend management, as well as payments with our NGINX business card. We coordinate room blocks for corporate offsites, sports teams, weddings, and the like. And we really offer an exclusive inventory for hotels, flights, rental cars, meeting spaces, really most of the things you need to book to do work travel. So if that's interesting at all, you can find us at engine.com. And yeah, let me tell you a little bit about then what that means for us planning wise at Engine. So our client operations team that Martin and I are part of, we are the team that manage our end-to-end customer and partner contacts across email, phone, and chat channels. We manage somewhere between 300 to 400 FTE, depending on the day and week. And that's split across internal as well as several BPOs across multiple regions within the globe. One thing to know about Engine is one of our DNA values that I love is speed with precision. As a company and as a startup, changes happen very frequently, daily, really, and we, see it as a priority to be action oriented, ready to adjust quickly, make changes quickly. And what that means is that creates a strong need for us for our staffing model to constantly evolve. Uh, that ends up meaning that our inputs are changing due to new projections on automation, volume deflection, AHT, new product launches. Um, any of any number of those things can change on a very regular basis for us as different projects progress and as new products start to roll out. What that means for us in terms of our focus on continuous improvement as a company is that from a planning perspective, there's a consistent need from our side to help quantify and prioritize initiatives, understand what the impact is to customer experience, to the bottom line, really help to determine what are the important initiatives for us to truly run at. It also means that for us, there's a great need for us to be able to execute quickly and prioritize quickly within our staffing decisions. So what we really began to run into as we stood up our capacity planning process and our model was it was a challenge to do all of those things and also do it quickly. And so without the right infrastructure in place, we were struggling to um, provide as much of an output and value for the business as we would have liked and could. And I'll
So
hand it over
yeah,
to Martin here. Yeah.
thanks, Ryan. So yeah, this is where things got real for us. Every new request that came in, a new initiative, a volume change, a what from leadership, meant like building everything from scratch. We weren't iterating, we were rebuilding. And with that, of course, comes with the version control nightmares that we all hate to have. Multiple copies floating around, no single source of truth, and a real risk of providing wrong numbers to finance or hiring. Our capacity was maxed out. The day-to-day, workforce management team just started to suffer like the work that we did. We were just buried under weight of all the requests that we were getting. And of course, we all, would rather choose instead of have to work late nights, but late nights, long weekends, not because we weren't working hard, it's just because what we were doing demanded it, right? And make sure we move quickly. So the cost wasn't, just personal to us. It was a very, very, manual work that we had to do. So we realized we had to change that. When we stepped back and looked at the situation, honestly, the math was very uncomfortable. Like we were spending almost 8 hours, if not more, every time we had to rebuild the model. And that wasn't because we were doing anything, incorrect. It's just because of how our process worked. And we were using Google Sheets, which we all love our Google Sheets and Excel, right? It got us that far, but we needed to scale. And so we started looking at alternatives. The tools that were baked into the big WFM platforms will require a full overhaul that we're not ready for. There are enterprise options like Anaplan. They're powerful for sure, but way more than what we needed and outside of our budget. We were stuck, right? So we know we need to do something. But we couldn't just keep absorbing the workload, especially as we scale and as we grow, still to this day. So something had to change, and that's when we started looking outside the box.
Yeah, and it was through really a combination of luck and happenstance that I saw a post by Mark on LinkedIn uh, talking about Cinareo and this new tool that was available. So we set up a meeting. Um, to Martin's point, we hadn't really seen a tool out there that fit our specific needs. And when we got into a demo with Cinareo, um, I will say, and I think I made this comment even to Mark when we were having our demo, was it was refreshing because this was a demo. This was ultimately a sales meeting, but it really felt more like a discussion with other workforce professionals. It was more about getting into the weeds of the challenges and speaking to somebody who understood the friction that we were feeling. And so yeah, we moved forward with Scenario, and truly the onboarding process. I would almost say we would have been fine even if we didn't have an onboarding or training meeting because the setup of the tool was so straightforward for us. We were able to create our first model and start running scenarios about within a day once we had, imported some of the forecasting information that we already had.
So yeah, as you can see on the screen, like there was some impact, obviously. But the headline number is this: the our scenario creation went from roughly 8 hours down to one, all in, start to finish. It's really, really that easy to use and get that easy of a lift. We freed up about 35 hours a week that we weren't spending on model building anymore. We went from completing about one request per week to five. Turnaround time dropped from a week down to 24 to 48 hours. But honestly, the number I'm most proud of is our staffing accuracy. That's, obviously what we're here to do is make sure our staffing is as accurate as possible. And so we moved from a 20% error rate to under 10%. We've been consistently under that for a while now. What that meant in practice is that WFM stopped being a team that just explained decisions after they're made and started being more a part in driving decisions and strategy. We could evaluate more options before committing to any one particular strategy, and we stopped rebuilding and started reusing. And of course, love it. Fewer late nights and weekends. So one of the examples that we use, scenario for, is, some of these questions of what happens when our best projections don't come to fruition. Early in Q1, we were tracking our automation projections, and it became clear that something was starting to, slip a little bit. Um, the gap had compounding FT and margin implications as we head into Q2, and we needed to figure out like how do we solve this? Do we accelerate hiring? Do we bet on our automation? Before scenario, we would have rebuilt the model once, handed over a single, automation rate, and hoped that we could help guide a decision from there. But more we dug in, we noticed that it was concentrated in certain context types, and that mattered because of the fix. So within scenario, it was super easy. We could toggle our automation inputs by contact type, run conservative, moderate, optimistic, scenarios side by side, and walk through our leadership team with a wide range of outcomes tied to real, cost. And we can make higher decisions while still on the table instead of, being, oh crud, we got to move fast and hire these people. We had enough ramp to properly, get what we needed. And that's, the difference that we have with scenario in this instance. Another, scenario and scenario, was reservation changes. Our product and engineering team came to us with a question. If we automate reservation changes, what's the staffing impact? Is the platform investments actually worth it? So before scenario, answering that across, multiple hotel chains, reservation subtypes, meant rebuilding the model from scratch. Of course, 8 or more hours, an exercise to do, and we'd only come back with, one number, basically a take it or leave it approach. But with scenario, again, we could set the inputs once, toggle the variables, and run multiple scenarios in fraction of the time. Again, being able to share through the room what the results were. Conservative, optimistic, different across different hotel suppliers. And we were able to walk into those conversations with options, not just an answer. And that completely changed the dynamic. We weren't just, validating and making these one-off assumptions. We were able to provide a wide range of here's our range and here's our ability to, show the different scenarios.
You know, Martin, I and Ryan, I am so incredibly impressed and pleased, if not delighted, that you have experienced such profound improvements in how you can do things. And of course, we're an enabling technology. Obviously, you have to be a workforce professional and understand, the process of the life cycle of workforce management. But I'm really encouraged and appreciate the feedback and your experience with the platform. I'd like to ask, what advice or tips and tricks you have for WFM professionals from your experience in using the platform, maybe WFM in more general terms, but more specifically with Cinareo when you're capacity planning.
Yeah, so one of the things we learned early on was being very intentional with the model setup from day one. Think through your queue structure, multi-skilling, inbound, outbound, all of that. That foundation pays dividends every single time we spin up a new scenario. Also, clear organization and structure matters, not just for building the plan, but for being able to actually operationalize it when it counts. And the biggest thing, I think that matters, especially nowadays, is data quality. Good data in, good data out. Obviously the converse, too. Um, but Star is a powerful tool, but it's only as good as you feed it, and clean inputs are literally everything. And then kind of one of my features that I really enjoyed that you told us about during our onboarding, but kind of loved it more over time, was the ability with the hiring and training ramps. It's easy to model headcount targets and forget that new hire isn't fully productive from day one. Obviously, that has big capacity implications if you ignore it. But what this allows us to blend those productivity ramps across our multiple hiring things.
So, I think you hit on some really key and interesting things about uh, in on this slide. And the fact is, and let me reiterate, Scenario is not just a capacity planning solution. It's really an all-encompassing solution for strategic planning within a contact center environment, a multi-geo, multi-location, captive, or hybrid, or fully outsourced environment, right? When you think about capacity planning at the agent level, capacity planning for support staff, the folks that support the agents in doing what they do, supervisors, trainers, quality assurance, workforce management, recruiting, etc. It's also a budgeting tool platform. It is a what if scenario, very robust what if scenario modeling platform, and a recruitment and training platform, all for short, medium, and long term planning. Again, for tactical and strategic planning. So I think these tips are very, very interesting. Indeed. If we can just flip to the next slide. I think, from what you've heard over the last 15 or so minutes, right, Engine didn't just speed up planning, but really they've reinvented or transformed how planning supports decisions. From my perspective, and you be the judge, right? And certainly from what we've heard from Martin Ryan today, as well as our other clients, Scenario is really easy to use and to get set up and onboarded in a matter of minutes, truthfully, right? It really expedites decision making. You can increase capacity of your planning team, your workforce management team, to do more with the same. And, as you heard, they have the ability to run unlimited number of scenarios to mitigate risk. And I've got a few other slides coming up to emphasize some of these. But think about using capacity planning from the standpoint of not just having a single number that is output and that you manage to, but understanding what the realm of the possibility is, whether volume increases or decreases, whether HT goes up or down, and really thinking about this as an advanced planning tool. I wouldn't go as far as to say business continuity and disaster recovery, although it can be used in that context, but understand what your risk tolerance is right? So you can make informed decisions. And this is, again, why we refer to Cinareo as not just a capacity planning solution, but workforce insights and decision support. Because ultimately, it is a platform that allows you to balance customer experience, employee experience, cost, and revenue. Next slide. So what happens when planning keeps up, right? And really, this is an iteration of what I just spoke about, right? Um, Engine talked about Ryan and Martin talked about the ability to run multiple scenarios to expedite decision making. Executives would come and ask questions, rules of thumb, whatever the case may be, and where it may have taken hours or days to respond can now be done in a matter of seconds, if minutes, if not seconds, right? So you're able to do a lot more and test more options to make sure that you've got the information, the knowledge to make informed decisions. This is, again, why we call it decision support, right? You now have no excuse for making poor decisions because the information is at your fingertips. What you choose to do with that is your choice as operations professionals, as workforce management professionals. And it allows you, because of the speed to solutions, the speed to answer, right? You can be very timely. It's not taking you days or weeks, as it may in traditional spreadsheet-based models, to come up with an option, to come up with a decision or various options. And at the same time, because, as I alluded to, being able to foresee what operational risk there may be, right? Because you're running different scenarios against your baseline plan, right? You can then determine your playbook for execution if and when necessary. Okay. Whether there's a new campaign that comes down the pipe, whether there's an emergent situation, pandemic or otherwise, whether there's a snowstorm, whatever the case may be, you've got the ability to plan in advance and mitigate operational risk from a CX, EX, and cost and revenue perspective. Next slide, please. So what does this really mean for planning teams? Well, planning becomes continuous and not a bottleneck. Again, in the old days, and it really isn't that long ago, where many organizations, I think the vast majority of companies that we speak with are still using spreadsheets for capacity planning and forecasting for that matter, right? And so that doesn't have to be the case anymore, right? You don't have to do capacity planning once a year or twice a year. It can be a continuous process, a continuous and iterative process, so that you are looking at and improving the outcomes to the betterment of your customers, your employees, and your shareholders, right? So planning doesn't become a bottleneck, right? Planning becomes part of a a set of internal stakeholders, planning, operations, recruiting, finance, right? So everybody's working together, and now you've got a platform to be able to support effective decision making. Again, let me reiterate: less time building, more time evaluating. That sounds like a commercial. Perhaps we should use it as a tagline. And being able to keep up with change. Again, this speaks to being able to get answers quicker, right? As you heard from at the outset, as Ryan said, the company changes so quickly daily, if not by the hour, right? And being able to respond with confidence that the numbers you're inputting, the platform you're using provides accurate output is absolutely fantastic. So, believe it or not, that actually brings us to the end of this brief webinar, although we do want to entertain Q&A. So if you have any questions, please do post them in the chat. And while you're doing so, I'm just going to do a little plug for our upcoming product showcase. We're calling Modernizing Capacity Planning, See Cinareo in Action. That's coming up May 20th. We'll be doing a live demo of the Cinareo platform in which we'll see all the capabilities that we talked about today. Again, agent capacity planning, support staff capacity planning, budgeting, what if scenario modeling, recruitment and training planning. And oh, by the way, if I didn't mention it, multi-skilling simulation, where you can model front to front, front to back, and back to back agent multi-skills to your heart's content. So let's see what is in the chat. Any questions that have come up?
I can read them out.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Could you share more about input data quality?
You want to take that one, Martin?
Yeah. Um, I mean, data quality is honestly one of the most important things to get right. The inputs that matter the most are, your historical volume, handle time, shrinkage data. Those have to be clean and consistent. And then Star does heavy lifting from there. We've seen gaps, issues with gaps in historical data and all those different things. And if it's, not consistent, we have to make sure that we audit those before putting it into the model, before putting it in the tool. That way we can do our different scenario modeling.
One of the things I was
Disagrees.
remiss in mentioning is a relatively new feature within Cinareo is the ability to uh, ingest actuals and look at it against plan, right? So compare what you planned for versus what actually happened down to the 15, 30, or 60-minute level, rolled up to the daily, rolled up to the weekly or monthly, rolled up to the entire plan, right? So when you talk about a feedback loop, right, in terms of data in, hopefully validated from reliable sources and what have you, you develop the plan, you execute the plan, both from a WFM and an operations perspective, and then you can measure the effectiveness of the plan through ingestion of actuals across performance and agent level or staffing level metrics.
Great. The same person asks about how would you compare the output from Cinareo and your manual way? How about in terms of accuracy? What do you see the numbers?
Sure. I can cover this one. I think, Martin mentioned it on one of the earlier slides, the improvement from, being 20% off in some instances down to within 10%. I think it really comes down to two main reasons, which relate both to the accuracy of the inputs themselves, as well as then the modeling and how do you take all of those inputs and present what the output of the forecasting actually is. The improvement of the inputs really came from time savings, the ability for us to project out more of what was coming, what projects and what improvements and what impacts they would have in our plan to make sure we had more built into our plan ahead of time as we built it. And really a lot of our inaccuracy beforehand came from we just weren't simply weren't getting all of those things built in, and they still happened, and we ended up, needing more or less agents than we had originally thought because we didn't have the full picture built in. The other piece, the benefit that we saw was working in a spreadsheet, you're a little bit limited, or it's more difficult sometimes to build on really strong mathematical modeling for what your requirements or headcount needs are. So one of the other benefits we got from leveraging Cinareo, and that means was having a built-in Erlang X calculation to help generate those requirements and get a little bit more advanced from, a basic workload calculation where we're coming up with the workload, factoring in some assumed occupancy, but not running it at the level of rigor that if you do this work day in, day out, something like Erlang modeling is going to get you much closer to what the actual need is, tied to service level delivery and not just getting heads to work to do the work.
And just to tack this on to some of that, I think is a silent creep into what we do as workforce management professionals is the risk of the manualness of spreadsheets. We've all had the little fat finger. We've all deleted something and couldn't get it back. And With Scenario, we didn't have to worry about that. So like that risk was taken off the table, which is a really, really, really good thing to help me sleep at night.
I think that's a really important point. I mean, Scenario follows COPC industry standard algorithms within the platform, as well as some of our own proprietary ones when it comes to things like the use of the new hire learning curve and tracking cohorts and the impact to average handle time, et cetera. But really appreciate those comments for sure in terms of what you're seeing. I think spreadsheets are the bane of everybody's existence. It takes a long time. How many times have we fat fingered a formula, right? Changed a plus to a minus, slipped a decimal, whatever the case may be, only to realize everything we've done for the past week has been wrong and have to redo it, right? You don't need to worry about that type of error, human error, uh, using our platform. Any other questions, Shiva? Or I know we're at the bottom of the hour now, probably time to wrap things up. Ryan
No more
Martin,
questions.
okay. Ryan Martin, thank you so very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to tell us about your experience with the platform. We really appreciate it very, very much. Value you as a client. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your schedules today. And by all means, if you're interested in learning more about Scenario, please feel free to reach out to me and or by all means register for our webinar on the product showcase on May the 20th. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. See you later.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye-bye.